Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It is halfway through the year, so I think it's time to do a mid-year check-in. I'm going to be telling you about all of my favourite books so far this year, all of the disappointing reads so far this year, my prettiest books that I've read, and loads of other different questions. This is based on the mid-year, I always get the name of this tag wrong, the mid-year book freakout tag or something along the lines of that. Just mix up those words until you get the right sentence because I don't know what the actual title of this is. But it's basically a mid-year check-in, and I like to do this in June because honestly it's quite revealing. I was sitting here and just like looking through my books that I've read so far this year. I'm quite far behind where I was last year, but honestly the biggest thing was that I have not had that many 5-star reads so far this year. A lot of the ones that are on my 5-star, like in my story graph, if you can click, you can like click on the different parts of the graph. A lot that are on my 5-star section are actually rereads. They're not new to me this year. And I think by doing that in January, I did a lot of rereading of my favourites in January. It started my year off really well, but it also just set the bar really, really high because not only was I reading amazing books, but I was also rereading them, and then I just fell more in love with those books. So they're not only 5 stars, but favourite books, and I read about 5 of them at the beginning of the year. So I feel like it's been tough for books to measure up against them, but I do have some new favourites that I want to tell you about, and I also have quite a few disappointing reads that I want to tell you about as well. So I'll leave all the questions that I am answering in the description box as well if you want to have a go at this tag yourself, or just answer some of them in the comments as well. But other than that, I think we just jump right in, and the first question is, what is the best book that you've read so far this year? So like I said, this was a little bit difficult, but then I feel like there's just one that I kept coming back to when I was thinking about this question, and that is Amma. I read this as part of my Reading the Women's Prize long list videos. I did vlogs reading all of them, and this one just really stuck out to me and it made me absolutely weep. Only a few books have ever like really made me cry, and this was one of them, and I was vlogging it at the time, and I think this one just really took me by surprise because reading the back I wouldn't think that this is something that I would be interested in. It's a multi-generational interconnected timelines story set in very different places around the world, and you're following one family, and usually that type of setup for a story is not for me. I find me a little bit slow. I just find that kind of multi-generational story, like, it's not usually for me. This book, it was just so beautifully written that I just was so overwhelmed as I was reading it. I cared so much about these characters, and then by the end of this book it just had me absolutely weeping. This book, I will say, heavy on the trigger warnings, especially at the beginning of this book, because it does start out with an act of incredible violence, and it is very difficult to read. I do think the way that it's handled though is very well done. I don't know how else to describe it. It didn't feel like it was gratuitous to me because I am quite sensitive to violence, especially when it's kind of about children, because this is basically about the grandmother character when she was a 10-year-old girl. I think she's 10, yeah. And that's where our book starts, but then you're also following her daughter and then also her daughter's daughter, so her granddaughter. It's hard to tell you any kind of concise plot about this book. It's more just about the feeling that it gave me, and I absolutely loved it. It was very beautiful. So glad that this was on the long list and that I was kind of forced to read it because I don't think I would have picked it up otherwise, and it's currently sitting, I think, at the #1 spot for me for my favourite book of the year so far. So please pick up Amma. Absolutely loved it. Can highly recommend that one. So the next question is, what is the best sequel that you have read in 2025? This will come as a kind of no surprise to people who've been watching my vlogs, because I've been obsessed with this series this year. But for the Paladins series, the Saints of Steel, is that what they're called even? I've been reading this entire series this year and absolutely loving it. It starts with Paladin's Grace, which is an excellent starting point, but my answer to this question for best sequel has to go with Paladin's Strength. I believe this is the second book. These are, I would say they are fluffy, cozy kind of romances, but that kind of doesn't really give you a full idea of what these books are really like, because they are set in a world that is like filled with peril and there is a lot of stuff going on. It's just that the main thrust of these books is focusing on the romantic center. So the main couple and their relationship and the progression of their relationship is the main focus. But the reason why I'm saying that this one is my vote for best sequel is because I actually loved the story that was going on behind the scenes in this one, and it was probably the most plot heavy out of all of them so far, although I haven't yet finished the last one, which is Paladin's Faith, and I'm also really loving this one too. So maybe if I'd finished it, I would give this one a run for its money. But I just loved the main couple in this, because you're following a paladin who is a follower of a dead god, and he's a berserker paladin, and he's the type of guy who like kind of has lots of casual relationships, but he doesn't want to commit to anyone because he thinks that he is broken on the inside. I know it does sound cliche, but he actually is very charming. And then also the main female character in this is a nun who is going on a mission to try and save her convent, but she has some secrets up her sleeve as well, and it's just so fun. I love the dynamic of like this kind of very flirty guy who realizes he's falling in love with a nun. It's just a great kind of dynamic all round. But I really enjoyed the culmination of the plot in this one, because it continues on from the main plot of the first one that I felt was just a little bit kind of convenient, or like left a little bit to be desired with the mystery, and then this is kind of a big dramatic ending to that plot. Really enjoyed it. So that is my vote for best sequel. The next question is, what is a new release that you have not read yet but you still want to? This one was hard to answer for me because I'm really bad at knowing what's come out, like when, in what years and stuff. But there are a couple of books I've seen so much buzz about that I really do want to get to. The first is Watermoon. This is a fantasy romance, I believe. The reason I really want to read this one is because I've heard it described as very like Studio Ghibli vibes, which is so fun. I don't know much about the plot, and to be honest, I'm not going to read the blurb to tell you all about the plot, because I don't like reading blurbs before I read books, which means I'm not very good at making videos about what books you should be reading or anticipating, because I don't know the plot. I go off vibes, and I really heavily rely on other people's recommendations, and I've seen a lot of recommendations for this one as well. So if you've read it and you know my taste, which you probably do if you're watching this channel, then tell me if you think I would like it, because I've seen it everywhere. And the other book is The Night and the Moth. This one has had so much buzz, and I do recognize this author. This is by Rachel Gillick. She's had quite a few books go like quite viral over on like book social media in general, and I've never read any of her books before. But a couple of you have recommended that I read them, especially when I was feeling like I was going to go into a reading slump. So I think that these are going to be quite fast-paced, quite fun, quite gripping maybe. These are fantasy romance stories. So I've heard really good things about her work in general, but The Night and the Moth, just everyone is saying how amazing it is. I've just literally only seen absolutely rave reviews for this. 5 stars across the board. It hasn't even had a backlash yet, potentially, because lots of times when things go really viral, like a month or two later, there's a big backlash and saying like, what are you guys talking about? It's bad. I haven't even seen any backlash about this one, like because it's been so popular. This is another fantasy romance, but I think this is more on the side of romantasy. I'm a little nervous because it has been described as a BookTok sensation, and that does give me a little bit of pause, but I am so intrigued that I really do want to read this one, and I want to get to it definitely before the end of the year. I also really like the cover as well. It's giving very like gothic vibes, and that might be kind of a fun aesthetic for the book as well. Next question is, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? This again is kind of difficult because I'm really bad at knowing when books are coming out, but honestly, I swear that this book was supposed to come out like last year maybe, and it still hasn't come out, and I've been waiting very impatiently for this book to come out, and it is the second one in the Hexologists series. So this is a book by Josiah Bancroft. He also wrote the Tower of Babel, the Senlin Ascends books, which I loved, and he wrote this book, and it is the beginning of a series. And this, I swear, it's like someone said to me that it was going to come out at the end of last year, and then I thought, okay, it's probably been delayed a couple of months, so it'll come out at some point this year. I've still yet to see it come out. I've been waiting. I really, really want to read it because I do think that this was just such a strong start to a new series. My favourite thing about Josiah Bancroft's books is the almost equal attention he gives to the world building and the plot. And not attention in terms of just like page time, but just both of them are just so well thought out. The plot in this book is set around this mystery and it is genuinely so intriguing, so many twists and turns. You cannot expect where it's going to go. But then also the world in which this is set just feels so fully realised and inventive, and like it feels kind of like steampunky, kind of. I don't know if it even is actually steampunky, but it just gives me that vibe. But you're basically following this married couple and they usually help people out with different like magical problems that they come to them for. But then they one day get a request from a royal secretary to go and help the king. And they are not really pro the royals in this, but they're intrigued enough to start trying to unravel this mystery, and it just absolutely goes from there. It is really, really fun. I love the dynamic with the main couple in this married couple. You don't often get like stories based around already established people in long-term relationships, and I just absolutely loved that as a dynamic. And I just honestly loved Josiah Bancroft's writing. I just really, really cannot wait for the sequel of this, and I don't know when it's going to come out. I'm actually going to Google it right now while I'm filming this video because I want to know if there's been any more news of number 2 in the series. Oh my god, there's a cover. There's a cover! Cover has been released. It's called Hexologists, A Tangle of Time. Okay, the most recent date is it's going to come out in September. That is exciting. Okay, we have a date. I did think that we did have a date, that it was last year, December. So I'm crossing my fingers for this one that it will actually come out in September. But yeah, we do have a cover and a title, which we didn't before. So I hope it continues being kind of like a mystery of the week type vibe, where there's like another, it's not quite self-contained because it does like really explode like with what's going on in the world. But I do like the kind of mystery of the week vibes for books, and I think that it's not done enough anymore. Okay, so let's go and be a little bit more negative now, because the next question is, what was the biggest disappointment? This one really stuck out in my head because I had it on my list for all of last year to be like one of my priority reads. I finally read it at the beginning of this year and I didn't like it. I really, really struggled with this one, and it is Foundry Side. I just expected to really love this book, especially because I have read a different book by this author and liked it a lot, which is actually another book that I am anticipating that I haven't read yet, the second book in the Tainted Cup by Robert Jackson Bennett. I do still want to really carry on with that series. But Foundry Side, I thought that this one was going to be so good, and I've just heard from lots of people who really read more high fantasy that this was like an amazing read, and I really could not stand it. The world building made no sense. It felt so clunky. The characters were flat. I honestly I could rant about this book for so long. It's basically set in this world where the magic system is where you can kind of like hack into items or code, like kind of you can like rewrite the code of items to make them think different things. So like if a door is locked, you can kind of like speak to the lock in the door and like rewrite it so that you give it something that it thinks is the key and then it'll open for you, that kind of thing. Nothing wrong with that. The way that the magic system was explained infuriated me. We were still having like multiple page long exposition within the last 15% of this book about the way that the magic works. At that point in the story, you're expecting a big climactic end to the plot, and you are expected to understand enough about the world for things to be able to make sense without a huge number of explanation, and also the changing of the rules that you've already re-established, which is why you're having to do all this exposition. I really didn't like this one. It just didn't make any sense to me. I think that there was just one kind of cool world building idea and everything else just did not hinge very well around that. Don't get me started on like the characters and then like the dynamics between the characters. few like different things were just absolutely ham-fisted in. I really, really, really did not like this book, and I was really surprised because I've only seen good things, especially from people who like the same type of fantasy that I like, for like high fantasy. But no, this was absolutely a waste of time for me. I really, really was frustrated, especially because it's about a 500-page long book, and I read the whole thing and I was so upset. I should have definitely DNF. But yeah, that one was very upsetting. So that is my biggest disappointment of the year, Foundry Side. Next up, on a more positive note, the next question is, what is the biggest surprise of the year so far? I'm going to take this in the positive sense because I've already ranted about Foundry Side. So the biggest surprise for me was the book Clear. This is another one I had just judged by the cover, literally, even though against all the odds, you're not supposed to, but obviously I did really judge on what I think that this book was going to be, and just a lot of the marketing around it. Like I hadn't really seen talked about and then like marketed in a way that would make me pick it up, and I randomly was just looking for a audiobook on my library and saw that this was quite a short book, so just put it in to listen to it. I read it, literally just sat there and like listened to it after I was supposed to be doing other stuff, listened to the entire thing in like one session. I fell in love with it. It is such a beautiful and poignant story about human connection, and it also is set in a really interesting historical time that I knew nothing about these like land clearing that were happening at the time. Basically in the 1840s in Scotland, in like the Highlands, and in lots of places around the UK I think as well, but this is based in Scotland, there were these orders put in by the wealthy landowners to go and clear off the inhabitants of their land who'd been living there, working there for generations, in order to just put in pastures for like sheep and like more productive things. And so you are following this one priest who is basically sent on a mission to this very far off remote island to tell this man that he has to leave his place that he has lived for his entire life. And they can't really even communicate as well. Their like dialect has been like so different. He's been living alone for so long, so there's a massive language barrier there as well. I just absolutely loved this story. I loved the evolution of the relationship between the two men in this story. It's one of those books, like I do feel like it kind of had that, like people say spellbinding all the time, but I did feel like I was kind of put under a spell because I just sat there and I listened to this all in one go. The audiobook was really good as well, but I do want to buy it as a physical book because I really, really loved this one. I just want to have it physically as well. It's a really skinny little book as well. It won't take you very long. I highly, highly recommend it. So I'm so glad that I ended up randomly picking up this book because it's like going to be one of my favorites of the year. And I just never would have picked it up other than like if I just really needed an audiobook at that one time. Okay, so the next question is, who is your new favourite author? Either a debut author or someone who is new to you. I am not going to answer this question how I should be because this is neither a debut author and they're also not new to me either. But my answer is going to be Julia Armfield, and the reason is because I originally read this book, Our Wives Under the Sea, when it came out, and I liked it, but I didn't love it, and I think that a lot of the intense hype around this one kind of made me judge it quite harshly. And then I ended up reading Private Rights by Julia Armfield and I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I read that last year and completely fell head over heels with it. And then I also this year have read Salt Slow and I absolutely loved it as well. So now I'm going to go back and reread this book, knowing now what I know about how much I love her other two books, and I really want to see if maybe I was just in a bad mood and the hype got to me, because I do think that Julia Armfield could be one of my new favourite authors now, because two of her other books are just absolutely like standout favourites of mine. Salt Slow is a collection of short stories. They are really creepy and they have this real haunting aspect to them, but they also do have a type of not lightness but a humour there as well, kind of the humour in the unexpected, and I really, really enjoyed most of the short stories in that collection as well. And I love the fact that now I've read 3 of her books, there is such a strong sense of like her writing style really comes across, and her motifs and her themes as well. Like there's always some kind of thing to do with water or with drowning or something to do with water, but kind of not water in the terms of just like the ocean, but like water in terms of like a bloated body that has washed up on shore, something that is slightly disturbing. So I will now, from now on, read everything that Julia Armfield comes out with. I actually wonder if I've read all 3 of her books now. I think Salt Slow was the first one, and then Our Lives Under the Sea was the second one, and then Private Rights is the third one. But very excited to see whatever she comes out with next. Absolutely love her, and my new favourite author, even though I did not love her first one when I read it. Has that ever happened to any of you, where you've read like later ones from an author and then realised maybe you judged them too harshly and now you want to go and read back? Like, that's never happened to me before. I think that I'm just like very judgmental immediately and then never pick things up again. But I'm really, really glad that I gave her another chance, because I absolutely love her now as an author. Okay, the next question is, who is your fictional crush? I don't have crushes. I'm changing that question to like, what was your favorite couple, or like favorite romantic pairing, because I don't have fictional crushes. I don't. Anyway, so obviously I've already talked about the Paladin series in terms of romance, and that is so good if you want like fantasy romance and like something that's quite fluffy and fun and silly. But I also wanted to give you a recommendation if fantasy is not your thing, because my favorite romance other than that was this one, which is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. And I was considering talking about Abby Jimenez in the previous question of like, or new favorite author, of new to you author, because I read all of Abby Jimenez's books this year. But unfortunately, I really hated her most recent book, which is a shame, because I read like 3 of her books for a vlog, starting with Part of Your World and then Yours Truly, and then the summer one, just for the summer. And I liked all of them. This one was my favorite by far. I really, really enjoyed the couple in this one. But then I read her most recent one, which is the one that's like, Say You'll Remember Me. Oh my god, I hated it. I was like, was I actually high when I read the first 3 books? Because this cannot be the same author. I am like cringing so hard at the entire thing. There were so many references to like ACOTAR, there were so many Taylor Swift references, and just like, it was so not for me. And that sounds like I'm being really judgmental of ACOTAR and Taylor Swift, and I'm not, but it's just like, it seemed like it was really written for an incredibly specific demographic and then pandering to that, and I was like, this is not it. Like, this is not the way that you write a romance. Like, anything that's got so many pop culture references cringes me out anyway. But also I hated so much of that book. But anyway, this question's about ones that I liked, which is Yours Truly, which made me cry. I really, really enjoyed this one. This is about 2 people who are really going through it in their personal lives, but still find time to fall in love. You are following Brianna, who is just gone through a divorce. Her, like, so many things in her personal life are really crumbling, and she has a really high pressure job as well. And that's where she meets Dr. Jacob, who has very intense like social anxiety, and most people think that he's very rude, so they get off kind of on a bad foot. What I liked about this one is the main couple. I liked the setting, it being set in a hospital. There's also letter writing, which I really enjoy in romances when it's done well, and I did think this was done well. I just think it was an all-round really good, really warm, really like nice romance book, and I enjoyed both of them together. So that's my answer for favourite romance, or like favourite contemporary romance, and then the other ones obviously is the Paladin books. The next question is, who is your favourite or new favourite fictional character? This one was kind of hard to think of, because I was looking at all my favourite books and I was like, the thing I loved about these books wasn't the characters, but then I remembered a book where my favourite thing was the main character, and that is Tib from A Little Trickery. I loved Tib so much that is the reason why I rated this book so highly. I read this book for her. I've never read a character like her. She was so sweet but not naive. She was kind but she wasn't passive. She was so clever and witty but also trusting and soft, and I just literally loved her. There's such a strong sense of the character's voice in this book as well, and I listened to this, actually I did partly listening as an audiobook and partly reading it, and I think the audiobook narrator did a really, really good job with bringing Tib to life. I was completely obsessed with her. I just like would have followed her to the ends of the world, and I think that this was a really good way of doing a like positive and happy character that's in a very dark and like mistrusting world, because you just can't help but fall in love with her. Although I say that, I couldn't help fall in love with her. I do think that maybe some people like she'd rub them up the wrong way, because it's such a strong character voice, if you know what I mean. Like, she is a person within this. She's not just like eyes to which you can like look through and experience the plot. Tib is on her own journey within this, and I personally really enjoyed this. I loved it. This is a historical fiction, and it is basically following Tib, who is a vagabond, and she is wandering around Tudor England, and it's a very difficult place to be a young woman on your own, but she somehow makes it work, and I loved her. Also really interesting, another like historical fiction that was set in an interesting time setting, or like with a point of view that I'd never seen, which is like there's a vagabond character. So really enjoyed Tib in A Little Trickery. And then the next question is super easy to answer, because it is a book that made you cry, and I've already talked about a couple of these, but they are A Little Trickery. I cried within the first, I think, 20 pages of this one, which is crazy because I usually have to read a little bit and care about these characters before crying, but genuinely something about the opening of this fully made me cry. I couldn't deal with it. And then obviously Amma, I was weeping at the end of this book, as you saw in my vlog. So they are very easy ones to remember me crying. And then I also, I think, teared up at the end of Yours Truly as well, because it was really sweet. Okay, next question is, what is a book that made you happy? Obviously, a lot of these books have made me really happy, but I have two different answers for this one. Firstly, I want to talk about I Capture the Castle. This one was recommended to me by my mum, and that just also made me really happy, because you know when someone recommends you a book and then you can understand exactly why they're recommending it to you, because that you can see why they would love it so much. Because I was just reading this book and thinking like, this is like how I would imagine my mum growing up. So that was a really added like lovely like note to this story as well. But this is really hard to categorize, this book, because it feels like such a classic, but then also it feels like young adult. It feels almost magical in tone as well, even though it's not a fantasy in any way. But there is always this kind of like edge of magic kind of hovering around. Like, it feels like something magical could be about to happen, even though there's like, it's not magical in any way. But it just has this tone of a fairy tale, and you're following in this story the journals of a young girl, Cassandra. She lives in this castle, this kind of decrepit old building, with her famous author dad, who is never writing another book, and then also his wife and her older sister as well. And they are basically living in genteel poverty. They have absolutely no money, but they live in this enormous crumbling house. And just, this could be another answer for a character that I really loved, because I really loved Cassandra's voice in this, because you're reading from her journals and she just has such a like practical yet hopeful kind of outlook on her life and the way that she describes what's happening to her. I really love this book and would highly recommend. It just made me happy throughout. And the second one, for another kind of more romantic book that made me happy, is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales. I loved this book so much. This is the third book in the Emily Wilde series. I've loved them all, and I just love jumping back into this world, to be honest. I've talked about these books quite a lot. They are what I would describe as light academia as opposed to dark academia. You are following Emily as she is discovering the lands of the Fae in this, and I personally love the footnotes and the kind of like analytical and research mindset of the way that these are written, like very highly contrasted to the absolutely fantastical plot that's going on and the romance as well. So these just like made me smile throughout. They're very happy and joy-filled books, and I really love Emily Wilde's books in general, but also this one that I read this year. And I love the cover of this one. This was also going to be maybe my answer to the prettiest book, which is the next question, and the final question. I think it's the final question, is it? So the next question is, what's the most beautiful book that you have bought this year or received? I have a couple of answers for this one. I obviously have, you know, some gorgeous ones that I've already shown you, but I want to show you a couple that I haven't shown you yet. One that I received at a book event that I've seen talked about a little bit is this one, Days of Light. I just find this really beautiful. It's not super unique in terms of a cover, but something about it. I really love this art style. And we heard a excerpt from the author about the beginning of this book, or a part of this book, and it really gives off the vibe of the cover. I am also really excited to read this one. It's described on the front as One Day by David Nichols, but written by Virginia Woolf. that's very intriguing to me. So yeah, one of the prettiest books, I think. I just love the light of that one. Another very completely different aesthetic that I wanted to show you is this secondhand book I got of Bleak House by Charles Dickens that I have not read yet. And it is an absolutely ancient little leather-bound copy. I do love getting books like this. It's got a really old inscription in that's completely worn out, which I think says this is from, the inscription is from 1927 maybe? Am I crazy? That does feel insane that it would last that long. But yeah, this is a beautiful little copy. I don't know if I'll actually read Bleak House from this. I'm already nervous to read this book. And I think reading an edition that is, oh my god, over 800 pages is kind of intense, but I'll definitely keep this copy. I just really, really love a little like piece of history here. I wonder actually when it was published. I wonder if it has an edition in the front. It does have cute pictures as well, which I love. No, it has no dates. It just says printed in London. So yeah. Maybe not beautiful to some, but very beautiful to me. That's another one. Oh, and then the final question for this video is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I have so many. I have so many that I need to read by the end of the year. I've done a video on my whole 25 priority reads for the year. I think, should we check how I'm doing with that one actually? Let's do this as a check-in because this is a mid-year check-in. This is when I should be doing this type of stuff, you know? So let me see. Okay, I can actually tick off another one off this list, but out of the 25, I have read 7 and I am midway through 2 others. So that's not great for like halfway. I don't think half of 25 is 7. Even though my maths isn't great, I don't think that's accurate. So I do have a lot that I want to read. Maybe I'll do like a separate video and go through my 25 priority lists, see if I still want to prioritize all of them. I think from glancing at the list, I still do, but it's really hard to know because you put pressure on yourself to read certain books and then like it builds up the hype and then you read it and you're like, it's not that good. Although I am currently reading one from my 25 priority list and I'm absolutely loving it. I'm actually currently vlogging reading this one. It's Ursula K. Le Guin's Space Crone. So I am really loving that one and I'm glad that I put it on my priority list. Thank you so much to my Patreons for supporting me and supporting this channel. I love all of you guys so much. Thank you for making this the best place to be on the internet. If you are interested in joining the Patreon, the link is always in the description and I would love to have you over there. Please in the comments answer any of the questions that you found most intriguing because I'd love to know your mid-year check-in as well with books. Maybe you could just answer your best book and your worst book as well for the year so far. It's kind of a fun way to check in and tell me like how many books you've read. Are you behind? Are you like reading more than you normally do? I would love to know all of those things, so let me know in the comments. If you haven't already, then please remember to subscribe. We have recently just hit 7,000 subscribers on this channel, which is so exciting and really happy about it. It feels like such a nice milestone to make with all of you, so thank you so much if you have recently subscribed or if you've been here since the beginning. That is going to be all from me today, so thank you so much for watching this video and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!